anything real official. I'm going to talk about the flawless course a little bit and how you can proceed through that because I saw a Reddit thread. But I got a different microphone here. I got a different setup. And so I am experimenting with this because if this works, then I'm going to start live streaming much more often. I kind of like to just come in once a day, Monday through Thursday at about 2 o'clock. That'll probably be the time. And we're going to have different topics each day. So I want to see how this works. I'm going to go ahead and record for about 15 minutes, but I want to talk about something I saw on Reddit. I actually came across this. Somebody was talking about my course, and they were talking about how it takes them a while to get through each lesson. And this is my fault because when I initially introduced the course, what I said was you need to get a perfect score. Now, I've talked about this before, but the reason I did that was because I was not actively creating the course. I was teaching a university. I was trying to create these more long-term for my current students. I was just trying to give them some exercises they could do at home if they had to miss class or if they weren't keeping up with what happened in the sessions. And so that Unit 1 session, a lot of it is actually live recordings from me teaching in the university. It's just the ear training sessions, and sometimes I spliced it together. That's why sometimes you'll see some weird edits maybe. But later, once it started to take off on YouTube, and a lot of people actually became very interested in it, I decided, you know what? I'm going to make this a little more polished. So starting with Unit 2, the recordings started to get a little bit better. And then later, because a few people were asking for it, I started to create the audio versions. And the audio versions are real high-end, especially in Unit 5. When you get to Unit 5, you're going to see that the audio quality is pretty pristine. I mean, it's about as good as I can make it. There's not a lot of background noise happening. I do use something called attention restoration theory, starting with Unit 4 in the audio course, starting with Unit 5, I guess you could call it the video course, but they're really just the audio course with a static image that you can watch it on YouTube. But attention restoration theory, what it is it's this idea that subjects learn better when they have nature sounds in the background. So, oh, this is kind of cool. I can see if people are talking. It says only top fans, but I don't know. Maybe I'll be able to see if people post comments. So we'll see how all this works. So that's the idea. In Unit 5, I'm starting to use this attention restoration theory. So when you get there in the audio unit, you're going to hear a little bit of rain sound. It's light, it's below the background, and some bird song. And this is designed to help you stay motivated. So before I get into this Reddit thread, there was also an instructor that I studied with as an undergraduate. His name was Takayoshi Suzuki, and we called him Tad for short. He actually has a baton named after him in Japan, and he's really well known over in Japan. And he had a real top level school there. And one of the things that they did to allow students to practice for longer periods was they had these rooms, if I'm remembering correctly, where the lights would change colors every maybe 30 minutes. And what they discovered is that by having the lights change color, the students were able to practice longer. And so that helped his entire program because he discovered that, hey, this simple change with the changing lights allows people to stay motivated. And so if you're having trouble with any of your studies, maybe try that. If you have like a hue light or something like that, or you can put a filter in front of your light so you can change the colors yourself, try it. See if it helps you pay attention longer. See if it increases your attention. You never know, it might just work. So going back to the Reddit thread. So when I first started creating this course, I was telling people you need to get 100% because I was like, well, if you're taking this at home, you don't want to stall your progress. And it's better to complete the same lesson over and over again than to stop and wait for the next lesson to come out. So that was the reasoning behind it. And what I've since done is tried to go through and remove any explanations where I tell you the grading, you have to get 100%, 90%, whatever I tell you. You can ignore that now. Officially, the way this course works, the way it was always designed to work, was I wanted to create a program where I could teach an entire semester, Monday through Thursday. I taught Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, where I would come in and I'd have 30 to 45 minutes every day with the students, and I would run through essentially the same exercises, but they would change each day. They'd change by key. So you'd be identifying perfect fifths and perfect fourths one week. That's all you do for that week, along with some of the other stuff I do in the Flawless course, like hearing inside chords, audiation, the mirror exercises. You do them every day, but in a real life class situation, you don't come in Tuesday and I just replay the lesson from Monday. No, I'm there, I'm teaching you. So I would teach it in a slightly different way on Tuesday to help you continually develop. And then on Wednesday, same material, slightly different way. Maybe the key changes, maybe the exercise changes a little bit. The ordering would definitely change because this is all impromptu. I just sit there and like, okay, this is a fifth. I should probably do a fourth now. There's an intellectual process going on where I'm creating diversity within each lesson, but they're all basically the same lesson until you kind of master it. And then let's say after 1 week, you've mastered it. Okay, so week 2, we can go on to new topics. So really what happens in the Flawless course is it's about 1 month for the first unit, if you just take one lesson a day. If you do Monday through Thursday, there's 4 lessons, about 36. So you can do the math, so it lasts a little longer than a month now. But the idea is you just come in every day and you do these exercises. And you don't worry about your scoring, but you do pay attention, you do put in the effort, you do focus, and you do the best you can to move forward. And so what I was trying to do was create an entire curriculum, basically for 2 years, where you would develop ear training in this way, where it was very incremental. And so that's what you have now with the Flawless course. The audio, if you care about pristine audio quality, I would go with the audio version. If you don't care so much about that, you can go with the video version. If you want some extra explanations, then you can get both. And there's now a package over on UreMusic.com where you can actually just buy the entire bundle. What is available of video, which is through Unit 4, and the audio, which now includes Unit 5. I've just started that. I'm going to be uploading Unit 5 on Monday, by the way, the first lesson. And then I'm going to start having at least one a day so that if you're at level 5, you can move past it and keep kind of moving forward. So the idea here is what I'm telling you is you do not have to spend 3 days even. What I'm going to suggest you do is go lesson by lesson. So day 1, take lesson 1. Day 2, lesson 2. Just keep going through the lessons. Don't worry about how well you're doing. When you get to the end of the unit, there's a final exam at the beginning and the end of each level. So the levels are 3-unit increments. So you've got lesson 1, or unit 1, unit 2, and unit 3 for the first level. Level 2 would be unit 4, 5, and 6, and so on. The first and last unit of each level, so 1 and 3, they have a final exam. 4 and 6, they have a final exam. So what the final exam does is it ensures that you are ready to move on to the next unit. So what happens is if you take that final exam and you take it for about maybe 3 days in a row and you cannot pass it, you can't get close to 100%, miss 1 to maybe 5 at the most, then you need to go back and practice the lessons again. So this is different. So rather than forcing you to do the same lesson every day, which becomes monotonous, you get to go straight from lesson 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5. And then if you can pass the final, which is much easier than the actual lessons in the unit, you're ready to move on. Because what the finals do is they're checkpoints. They allow me to say, hey, you know what? You're doing great. You are ready to move on to something more advanced. You're ready. You can go on to unit 2. You can go on to unit 3, that sort of thing. So yeah, you can go at a much faster pace now. And this is partly because I have enough material that you won't get stopped. Now, if you're right at the edge of unit 4, and you're about to go on to Unit 5, then I recommend still spend 3 days per lesson if you make any mistakes. And the reason for that is while I'm going fast through the later units now, you may still have to wait, and I don't want you to slow down. So the rules are going to change. Once this entire course is complete, though, I'll just tell you right now, it's going to be done. My plan, it's slated to be done in August 2026. But once the entire thing's done, you'll be able to just go one lesson a day. And in 256 days, approximately, you'll be done with the course. Okay? And what will happen at the end is you'll have had so much exposure. You basically get each unit is one lesson in a sense. It's one lesson that attacks the same skills from multiple different angles for 15 days. And then there's a final exam for most of the units, not the middle ones, but for most of them, there's a final exam. And that gives you lots of varied exposure. That's why this is different. And so I took an ear training course when I was younger, and it was on CD. And so in that course, you were told you can only make one mistake. Sometimes the rules would change a little bit, but basically, don't move on. Keep replaying this tape over and over again until you only make one mistake. And I remember I was motivated because I was seeing some good results, but also sometimes the way things were presented, it would take weeks or longer to be able to pass that one lesson. And so I started creating my own drills to help me bridge the gap between what I couldn't do and what the lesson wanted me to do. And that's the start of kind of my ear training journey. When I became a professor, when I started teaching composition online privately, I upped the ante on this. I started to create more lessons like this. And I always had the goal of creating this flawless course where you don't have to repeat the same exact lesson over and over again. Instead, what you can do is you just go lesson 1, lesson 2 is a little different, 3, 4, but they're all teaching kind of the same thing. And then by the end of the unit, rather than having to spend months on a single lesson, you just spend a few days on each lesson if you have to. So my recommendation, to make this very simple, if you're in Unit 4, just do one lesson a day if you can get 100%. If you can't, go ahead and do one lesson for 3 days. That just gives you time so there's no gap between going from Unit 4 to 5. If you're in any of the previous units, Units 1 to 3, then just take one lesson a day and keep moving forward. Because it's not about perfection, it's about the experience and the immersion. That's what we're doing. When you learn a language as a baby, your brain is obviously primed for that, so there is that aspect of it. But you don't go and necessarily do the same exact thing every day to learn to speak. You're constantly being exposed to new experiences that reinforce what you already know. And so that's what the Flawless course does. It's an immersion course. You listen, you focus, and you're done. And I especially like the audio one because you don't have to look at anything. In Unit 2, there will be some dictations you can download to check your answers. But as we go further in the course, there's nothing. It's just an album. You download the audio files, you put it on your phone, your desktop, you load it up in your music library, you press play, and you go to it. So hopefully I wasn't sitting here just kind of talking to myself and you couldn't hear anything I said. I don't know how this mic's going to work, but this is my experiment. I want to do a live stream. I want to see how all this works when I do it. And so that was kind of what I did here. So the Reddit thread, if I remember correctly, I'm not going to respond to it because it's kind of like, that's their own thing. They can go ahead and talk about it. I don't want to influence decisions or try and defend anything. But the criticism was, well, I don't know if it's going to work. And does anybody else have any experience with this course? And so here's the deal. If you want to develop a really powerful ear, you're not going to develop it overnight. I had a meeting with someone yesterday where they were talking about how a tonal based approach was really helping them. And absolutely, a tonal based approach is going to help you. But there's going to be a point where you hit a wall. And when you hit that wall is a point where you suddenly probably want to start hearing more out of music. And so my take is, if you're going through an ear training program that works for you, go through it, stick with it until you hit that wall. And then maybe consider the flawless course after that. Because the way the flawless course is designed, it's not designed to teach any one technique. I actually teach a tonal based method in there. You'll start to see it start to come through more clearly in about unit 3, 4, and 5. But there's a tonal based approach in there because I know it is one aspect of developing the ear that works really well. But there are many other techniques. It's not a hybrid of all the courses out there because a lot of it is based on my research and my experimentation with over 1,400 students at the university I taught at. So it is original. It is an audiation first approach where we tap into a very basic level of audiation. My composing hour course is a full audiation course. That is intense and fun. The students that are taking it, I had one student say it's phenomenal. They really think it's amazing. I had other students say, I am getting new insights every week. So they're enjoying it. But everything I do is audiation based, even my format analysis class. I had somebody recently say, "Oh, your format analysis class, you should play the examples." And I completely agree. I 100% agree with that. But the thing about the format analysis class is my students wouldn't actually get there. I'm making it available publicly to an extent. I'm giving you the harmony review for free here. But my students, before they even get there, they've done flawless. They've done audiation. They've done counterpoint. And all of this enhances audiation. All this is audiation skills. Counterpoint teaches you, to hear one part, then two parts, then three parts, right? So then by the time you get to the form class where you have 4-part harmonies, you can audiate that. You don't need me to play it. And so the idea behind that course is what you're getting on YouTube is just the videos, but there's tons of downloads. There's other information. When you actually sign up either through YouTube, you go to the perks section after you join, and you can see a link where you can go access a free version of the course over on UreMusic. That allows you to download the documents. But without those documents, you're missing part of the course. So the point is, you don't need to hear the examples, and it allows me to make the course more efficient by not playing the examples because you get to continue to focus on your audiation skills. So I kind of want to just come on, talk about whatever I want to talk about. Stream of consciousness. There was no plan for today. Oh, I did want to address the Reddit thing where at some point, I think he said, at some point, the teacher has to deliver results. And this student, I think, was in lesson 8, not anywhere near close enough to see the results. So at one point, I think I said within 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, you would start to see a change. Most people do notice a change in perception almost right away, like within the first few lessons. That's why they continue. But when I say 3 to 4 weeks, I mean 3 to 4 weeks of lessons, not 3 to 4 weeks on the same lesson, you know? So 3 to 4 weeks would be 21 lessons. So you would have to get to at least lesson 20, 21 in the first unit before I'd expect you to start seeing results. And here's the thing. If you are doing what I told you to do, which was stay on a lesson until you are able to pass it, if you're doing that, that's great when I'm only releasing a lesson every 1 or 2 weeks, which is what I had to do at the university. I was very busy. Sometimes my schedule would have me there from 8:30 to 9 o'clock at night or later. I remember on Wednesdays, those were rough because I would teach from 8:30 to 12:45. And then I'd have a little break. And then I would teach from 4 until 6:45 at night. And the time in between was prepping for that night class, that really long night class where it was a graduate level course, taught Schenkerian Analysis and 20th century techniques, things like that. So it required a little bit of prep on my part. But, I didn't have time to work on the course effectively. like every day. So I did start recording some sessions from classes, and that became part of Unit 1. There's no recorded sessions in Unit 2 from the university. Those are all, at that point, I found a way to do it kind of on the weekends, things like that. So the idea here is, you know, we're not there anymore. There are now 35 lessons in Unit 1, 16 in Unit 2, another 16 in Unit 3. Unit 4 has another 16. Unit 5 is going to be coming out pretty rapidly, probably be finished within 2 weeks here, because I've got the time now to do it. Thanks to all of you. Thank you very much for supporting this. All of you have been great. And so there's no need for you to spend all that time. And this is what I'm getting at. If you are trying to get 100% on every single exercise, you're going in every day, you're like, I got to get 100%, I got to get 100%. You don't, because that will actually stall your progress. It's better than not doing any ear training. You see what I'm saying? So when I was creating a course, it was better you took the same lesson every day until you got the next lesson. But now that you have all the lessons, just go through it. One a day, no more than one a day. You won't get the benefit if you try and binge them all in one day. But I do tell you, before a final exam, you can absolutely binge every lesson over a weekend if you have time. I mean, time is an investment. And that's the other thing. It's like I really appreciate the fact that people trust me with their time, because it's a commitment. You're coming in every day and you're doing these ear training exercises, and you should be able to see results from that, you know? And you will see results if you're consistent. And that's the thing. I was talking to somebody yesterday, a real big supporter of what I'm doing here. And, he was basically saying I don't charge enough. And also that it's a shame that real musicians won't go through this course. And that's true, because they're busy. They're making money as musicians. They are in it. Every day they're in it. And so honestly, the hobbyists are probably going to get more out of this course. But it's true that it's hard to find 30 minutes, 45 minutes in some cases. It's usually just pretty much all the audio version. I kept it under 30. I made it real concise. All the tips are at the end, so you just go through the exercises, because I'm trying to honor your time. But what happens is, you give up. It's hard to commit to something for a long period of time. And so that's why I post so much content about discipline and how you can create a schedule, and just trying to motivate you, because I know that part's missing from the course in some ways. The motivation comes when you start to see, oh, I'm really hearing things differently, you know? And the people that stick with it, they hear things differently. So I don't know. I just kind of hope that everybody can experience that. I do make the courses very affordable, because I'm not trying to get rich off this. I'm trying to just kind of cover my costs and have enough money coming in that I can continue to create this. That's all I care about. Just, basic place to live, be able to eat, create these courses for you. That's all I'm doing here. And I put a lot of time, and I enjoy it. I started, this is kind of my rambling day. I started as a composer. Both my degrees are in music composition. I released my first CD back in 2002 or 3. Might No, it wasn't 1998. It was like 2003, because I had just finished college. And I remember back then, this was before iTunes and all these streaming media platforms existed. I would make a couple $100s a month off CD sales. That's how it's changed. I was able to get my music into a distributor. I was able to sell it in some retail stores, and I was able to sell it really just by myself, and I made a couple $100s a month. Now, with streaming services, it's really nefarious, because they care more about investors. I mean, that's just the truth. And they don't really care about the artists. And they're selling each track for a fraction of a penny for each listen. And then I've even heard recently there's some issues where if you get too many tracks, or somebody puts your music on like an AI playlist, then the streaming service may even just remove your album entirely and say, you've been botted. Like bots were listening to your music, you were gaming the system. And we have proof, which they never actually provide to people. There's a really interesting video on that somewhere here on YouTube, which you should listen to. I'll see if I can find it and post a link in the description later. But the point is, I've been doing stuff like this a long time, and it used to be a lot easier. I'm just going to be honest. I think there's more opportunity now, but it used to be a lot easier to cut through the noise and get your music out there. But ever since everything went all digital, now it's just like, well, here's a few pennies. And if you know anything about marketing, you cannot market something if you're not making any profit. So the way it used to be with an album, sell an album for 20 bucks. Okay, you can maybe deduct the cost of printing the album, the shipping, you figure everything out, and then you say, okay, this is how much I can spend to advertise it. And so a portion of the profits go to advertising. That's why things cost money, because nope, it's not like you put something out there and people find it. You have to advertise. You have to do things to make it known. And so you can do that if you're selling a product that's $20. If you're selling a product that costs 99 cents for a single stream, maybe a 3 to 10 minute piece, you can't market a $1 item. It's not worth it. It's not worth the time and energy. So what effectively happened with these streaming media giants is they kind of made it impossible for anybody to market their music because there's no profit. People would just go and buy the one song they'd like. They wouldn't necessarily buy albums anymore. And then it went from not buying albums to just listening on streaming platforms where they pay, what, 10 bucks a month? I actually don't subscribe to any of those, except for iTunes, actually. I use iCloud for business stuff. So because of that, I do have Apple iTunes, and so I can stream stuff that way. But, it's just, that's the state of things. And so while I started as a composer, I really, once I finished my master's program, I kind of got burnout on composition. And I said, there has to be something more. My music, okay, I can audiate now, I can write anything I hear. And once I did it, I lost interest. And so I think I realized that my interest in composing, I loved hearing, and I still love hearing an ensemble play my music. It's a great experience. But what happened was I just kind of lost interest. I reached a point where I'm like, I know how to write the music I want to write. It's not a mystery anymore. It's easy. I hear it, I put it on the page, I'm done. I'm actually composing some music now, which I'm going to be releasing when the whole album's complete. And of course, it'll be on a streaming media service. And, it's just going to be one of those things where I put it out there just because it's what I do and it's fun. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting how things change. So I lost interest in composition. And where my interest fell was, the reason I lost interest is because I didn't like the music I was writing. I felt like it was all based on what I heard. It was all intuitive. And I'm like, I want to write something more. There needs to be something more to music. There needs to be more of a meaning behind it. And so I thought, okay, maybe now's the time for me to really focus on music theory and develop my ear further. And so really for about 10 years, I did that. And then I got a job at the university. And that's when I really discovered, actually, I enjoy teaching music way more than I enjoy composing. Stravinsky actually said he enjoyed it. He enjoyed the art of actually composing music more than listening to his music. He doesn't actually like listening to his music. He just liked putting it together. And I can understand that. And that's kind of where I went. I was more interested in the mechanics of it, teaching others how to realize their ideas. Teaching people that everything they need for an entire composition, the seed of their composition, is in the first 4 to 8 measures. I haven't come across a student yet where I couldn't look at the first 4 to 8 measures and say, this is what you need to do to develop your piece. That's composition, and that's why you don't need to teach a particular style if you're a composition instructor. And what happens a lot of times is if you're taking composition lessons, you tend to try and find somebody who fits your style, but I teach all different styles: jazz, pop, musical theater, classical. I teach everything, film. And it doesn't matter because the mechanics stay the same. The aesthetics of what makes a good composition doesn't change, as long as you understand what your music is and what it's trying to tell you. And that's what I teach people. I teach them how to figure out what their music is telling them they want to do. Then you have a composition that's going to work. And so that's what I like to focus on. I like actually helping other people. But now, I don't know, it just kind of came out of nowhere. I suddenly have developed this interest in just sitting at the piano and playing what I'm hearing. And part of it is because I've developed some piano skills. And so I'm creating some electronic music now, but it's all me sitting there playing it. And so you'll see that when it comes out in a while. It'll probably be more for me than anyone else, but that's okay. So, if you have any questions, let me know. I'm going to go ahead and stop this because if this isn't working, I just wasted a lot of time. But if it is, great. I'll see you on Monday at 2 p.m.